All right, let's go ahead and begin. I want to say good morning once again. I'm Deanne King. I'm a news anchor, traffic anchor for the culture reporter for WFLA News Channel 8. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be before you all. It is so great that this is virtual because, yes, for those folks who do watch, I was just on television. And so this is truly an honor to be a part of United Way Suncoast. This organization does so much for our community. I've covered some of the great work that they are doing and the lives that they are changing. So I know firsthand. This is my second year hosting this panel. So I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. So it's gonna be a fun, engaging conversation. We have some incredible panelists who are going to answer your questions. We'll be able to hear from you. This isn't where you just sit and listen. This is going to be very engaging. So United Way Suncoast works every day to elevate early learning and energize middle school and high school students from its very beginning in 1924, just a couple of years ago. Education has served as a cornerstone and it continues to be a focus today. So you can visit the address that we're going to pop up here right on your screen to learn more about how United Way Suncoast supports equity and access to education. So we all care about the state of our children in Florida, here in our area, of course, right? But what can we do to actually turn the care into positive action? You know, it's very important. So over the next hour, we're going to hope to answer and get the answer to those questions. In today's presentations, we'll delve into a recent study from the Florida Chamber Foundation. It's about the impact the early learning crisis has had on our workforce with one of the state's early learning experts. Then we'll also bring in three panelists to discuss the intertwining relationship between education, government, and business sectors, which is very important. We'll also give you, our audience, a chance to pose some questions about these topics and what is the state of the child here in Florida. First, of course, we want to bring a warm welcome to United Way Suncoast Chief Impact Officer, Bronwyn Baytall. She is going to offer some greetings and, of course, explain why it's so important for each of us to go beyond the score when we assess the state of children in our community. Good morning to you, Bronwyn.
Thank you, Deanne. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for being here. So welcome to United Way Suncoast's presentation of the state of the child beyond the score. What does it take to move beyond a focus on individual scores, however important those may be? What does it take to dig deep, really deep, into long-term solutions for our children, our families, and our employers? Really our community. Beyond the score is just that. Today, we'll have a conversation and take a deeper dive into what is possible for our children. Change takes time. We must go beyond conversations and distractions focused on scores that don't move quickly enough. We must look past proposed actions or solutions that are deemed too slow. Instead, let's turn our attention to and double down on people, place, policy, and practice. People, let's see our children as individuals with individual needs. Blanket, if we just did this, solutions will not deliver on long-term change. Change needs to be specific and tailored to individuals and communities. Place, let's focus on places of greatest opportunity and double down on what each community needs and wants. Policy, changes in policy take time. We'll hear a little more about that later, no matter who proposes it. What change can we get behind now? What can we put forward, stretching outside of what has always been to what's really possible? And practice. Think of one thing we're doing right now. Is there something brave that we need to change or implement or stop that would extend this conversation into meaningful action? This morning is a challenge to all of us. We must think beyond the score and truly focus on the state of our children. To help us dig deeper into these thoughts, I welcome back our wonderful moderator, Deanne King, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you, Bronwyn, for those remarks. Very important there. Now, we did have a couple of changes, just full transparency. Y'all know I keep it real. But I did want to highlight a report that we did want to focus on for a portion of our segment this morning. It's the Florida Chamber Foundation's recent report on the impact of childcare gaps right here in our state. So according to this report, Florida annually loses $5.4 billion. I want y'all to think about that. Not million, $5.4 billion because of the childcare crisis. So lack of access to high quality early learning is severely impacting employee turnover and absenteeism. And that's all throughout that report. So we will have a few questions that we'll revisit as it relates to that report. Maybe there's also a way that we can get that report out to some folks who might not have access to it, but it's very crucial, very important. Also knowing that our state annually loses $5.4 billion, and that's all related to our childcare crisis. Now I have the honor of bringing in our incredible panel. Going to do some introductions here on this Tuesday morning. So we are joined by the State House Representative of District 73. That does include parts of Sarasota and Venice. She's a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, holds an MBA from the University of North Carolina. That's Tar Heels, right?
That's right.
Oh, Tar Heels, there we go. She is also a mother of three. Let's welcome State Representative Fiona McFarland. We also have joining us this morning the CEO and the president of the Children's Movement of Florida. She's a Miami native, go 305, I know about them too. A graduate of the University of Chicago, a mother of two beautiful children. Let's say hello to Madeleine Thakur.
Thank you.
And finally, we welcome the CEO of PrimeGroup Insurance. He's a father, a graduate of Indiana University, a member and former chair of the CEO Council of Tampa Bay, and an active member in the Hillsborough Education Foundation CEO and Schools program. So let's bring in Mr. Edward Ellsasser. Thank you all for being here. Are you all excited?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I do want to remind everyone before we dive into all of these questions in our amazing panel, I want to remind everyone and invite you all to submit your questions, right? So there's a question and answer portion. I think a lot of us are probably used to Zoom by now, but there's a question and answer portion if you put your mouse over your computer screen over the Zoom, and you can go ahead and utilize that function while the panel is actually talking and we're engaging in this discussion. If you all have any questions, and we're going to revisit those questions a little bit later in our program. All right, let's get to it. So we're going to dive a little deeper into that report that I was talking about. Representative McFarland, I want to ask you, the report from the Florida Chamber Foundation notes its $5.4 billion figure includes $911 million in lost tax revenue for the state. It's a complex issue, as we all know, but does that number intensify your focus on early learning?
It feels like adding fuel to my fire. I've got three little kids, and when I ran for office, my husband works, I work, I was adding this whole new side thing. And like many other families in Sarasota, we looked around to find childcare and no infant care available. We were on the wait list at 5 different places before we got a spot at 40 Carrots. And I think we have Michelle Caprillian on joining us today. But my experience is no different from any other working family in Sarasota or across the state or even across the country. We have a childcare crisis. You all are on this session today. You are aware of this. And so I approached it as I have a unique opportunity as both a mother and a lawmaker to focus on this. Government's not the solution to everything, and I'm not suggesting that government should be the provider of childcare, but government has some tools we can use here. And the approach that I'm taking is to try to bring employers to the table, to incentivize employers to join with families, because that's what I want. And I figure if it's something that benefits me, it's going to benefit other families in my district and in the state. And so that's the work that I'm doing. The chamber's big dollar sign on how much the workforce is missing out on parents' earning power. It's one of those where it's self-edifying, right? I read this behavior, I'm like, yep, that checks out. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you use your own personal story to obviously impact and influence what you do as a lawmaker, which is incredible. Madeleine, I want to loop you in here. You lead state level policy efforts aimed at increasing investment in high quality early learning. And so when you think about the reporting, you hear these numbers, do you wonder what parents and leaders could do with an additional $5.4 billion?
Oh, do I ever? I think you said 911 million of that is direct lost tax revenue that Representative McFarland and her colleagues could have at their disposal to choose how to spend. And, our state right now spends 1.7 billion dollars on early learning, and we're not nearly serving the whole population of Floridians that could use some help in paying for childcare. And so I look at these numbers. If we could use this to double our spending on early learning and serve more of those families, it'd be a big deal. If we can minimize that lost revenue to companies so that they are able to offer more benefits to attract and retain employees that have families, it makes a huge impact too. I mean, these are some of the most important things when you ask families today. 50% of working parents say they would leave a job for another that has greater flexibility. More than a third of parents say they'd take a pay cut to go work somewhere else that has greater flexibility. And sometimes organizations need to see, when you support your employees, everybody wins.
Absolutely, that is very true. Ed, your company, Prime Insurance Group, deals in commercial insurance and helps companies with employee benefits. As Madeleine was just talking about, what's your reaction when you hear that figure, $5.4 billion? And do you kind of look inward?
I mean, obviously that's a big number. And, I guess COVID, a lot of us weren't set up with the work from home deal, and some of the absenteeism we've been able to address with employees having the ability to work from home now when their kids are sick. We've also set up I call it the kids zone, but a few cubicles in the back where, if you've got the emergency, you need to bring in a child, for the day or for a few hours that we can do that, and they can play on the iPad or do whatever in the back. Seems to happen a lot more during the summer when maybe camp schedules or whatever don't work out. But employers do need to be more flexible now and look for more solutions to help out their team. Madeleine's correct that people are looking for more flexibility, definitely more than ever the work from home flexibility, at least a portion of the work week. So.
Well, thank you for those comments, and I appreciate all of you all. Just a reminder for those folks who want to utilize the Q&A, the question and answer tool during our webinar. I think I see a few or maybe one or two that popped in already. Make sure you all are utilizing that so that we can answer your questions a little bit later. Now, I want to talk about how businesses can actually support education. So bringing back in Ed, as a participant in the Hillsborough Education Foundation's CEOs in Schools initiative, you've taken a special interest in West Tampa Elementary School, leading an effort to actually bring about physical improvements to engage with school administrators. Can you tell us about that experience, what you've gone through, how it's definitely impacted you, and do you think we need to expand efforts to boost education?
Definitely, 100%. I've been working with West Tampa Elementary. This is my 5th year now through the CEOs in Schools program. And it's a program where one day a year, bring a business leader in to spend a day in the school with the principal, with the staff, and kind of see what it's all about. And then continue to work with that principal and school throughout the year. And we've really, it's been a great experience. West Tampa's Title I school. And we've been able to really make an impact there between campus cleanups, the library. We raised $15,000 and new furniture, adjustable height furniture. All the furniture was broken, no technology. We brought in our team and painted and books and all that. My son has a landscaping business. We brought about 30 volunteers in and, mulch and ripped out plants and planted new items. And we've really revamped the whole campus over the last several years. And in addition to that, we're giving the students opportunities they normally wouldn't get. Like all the fifth graders, we've been taken to JA. They didn't have the volunteers in the past or the financial wherewithal to do that. Third graders to the Mosey Museum, check out the dinosaurs. So some of it's connecting the dots in the community. The school was having issues with the local Boys and Girls Club. And so I'm friends with Terry Carter that runs the Boys and Girls Club. So we got Terry's team over to the school to sit down with the staff at West Tampa and get the issues resolved. So, you know, these Title I schools, they need support, they need community support. And I'm glad that we can play a small part.
How essential do you think it is to continue to expand efforts like that in order to increase or boost education?
I mean, we're you know, this, as I mentioned, this is the 5th year, and now we're starting to see the test scores are coming along. So I know this is beyond the score of this conversation, but we are seeing an impact with the test scores. The teachers, I'm amazed at how dedicated they are and how much they care, and they know about every single individual student in that school. I sit in on some of the planning sessions, and they're like, okay, we need to pair this kid up with this kid because they need some more help with reading or math. Or West Tampa's mainly Hispanic, a lot of first generation English speaking students. So that's really so important. So we're starting to make some headway there, and I feel like we're starting to move the needle and make a difference.
Well, thank you for all of the work that you have been doing with that school for the past 5 years. That is incredible. Madeleine, so your role at the Children's Movement includes the Business Engagement Initiative, Bosses for Babies. I love that name, by the way. You also serve on the Florida Chamber's Business Alliance for Early Learning. So what kind of involvement does your organization strive to get from the business sector, and why do you believe it's a priority?
Yeah, well, the first thing is let's make sure we're connecting this conversation on childcare to the education. And we're talking again beyond the score, but one of the scores we're looking at is only 50% of children are coming in ready to kindergarten. And then only 50% are reading on grade level by 3rd grade. And what this tells me is that these are a lot of the same children. They come in behind, they are still behind. It is not that our teachers and schools are failing these children, it's that we're forgetting human babies are not born with fully developed brains. That is what the first 3 years are for. That's when 80% of the growth happens, 90% by age 5. And if we're missing out on those stimulating, nurturing, sort of enriching opportunities in early learning, that's the foundation of our education system. So the first thing, how can the business community get involved and what do they need to do? It's awareness about that. It's awareness about the fact that tackling this childcare issue is an investment in your workforce today, because more of those working parents in your organization are able to show up and contribute. And we can all think of the meme that, you know, the most loyal employee is a mother who feels supported. You know, this is true. You know, the productivity, loyalty, all these things go up when you're focused on this, but you're also investing in the workforce of tomorrow, because it is in those 0 to 5 years that the skills like cooperation, communication, focus, managing your emotions, you know, all these things that employers call soft skills. And we talk to a lot of employers, they're having trouble finding those right now. So engaging on this issue means tackling workforce of today, workforce of tomorrow. So our big message to the business community comes out of our desire to see all children ready for kindergarten. And we believe they can support their employees through family-friendly policies and practices that allow parents to be more present and do that work on their own, to advocate, to take a look at what Representative McFarland and her colleagues are doing on early learning and say, hey, by the way, this is really important to us as business leaders, and they can give back. So what Ed's talking about in the K-12 system, our message to businesses who care about education is don't forget the early learning centers. That's education too. Don't forget the family childcare homes in your communities. And if we can get CEOs in those schools, as well as our public schools, we can make a big difference.
Very well said, because then when businesses invest into their people, right, and that learning starts at home, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's access, especially like some folks might not have access to be able to make sure their child has the best learning experience from 0 to 3. right?
Right.
So very well said. Representative McFarland, you were one of the sponsors of the bill last year that would provide a child care tax credit to employers to help offset child care costs. That bill did not pass, but of course we know sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years to actually get a bill to go through. So what kind of feedback have you received from the business community, and what can we expect? What are the bill's prospects when it comes to this 2024 session?
We started our 2024 session in January, and I'm going to sponsor it again. Sometimes it takes a couple of years, especially if it's a big idea or something like a tax credit. But I'm committed to doing it. And the reception from both the early learning community, from families, and from employers has been overwhelmingly positive. I mean, it makes sense. I will say that it was the business community that led me to this bill in the first place. So again, I looked at the tools in my toolkit as a lawmaker. What can I do that helps my community? I want this to be a win-win for employers and for families. So I talked to some of the employers in my region. In Sarasota, we've got 2 major employers here who have built on-site childcare for their employees. PGT Windows, they had a manufacturing schedule that they needed to provide care, that the hours were tailor-made for their employees. And then our hospital, Sarasota Memorial Hospital, similar situation. And both of those employers realized that when unemployment in the state is 2.5%, they need to compete however they can for employees. When I was first entering the workforce, I think the trendy thing was like offer hacky sacks and put a ping pong table in the workplace, and you'll attract a competitive workforce. Now it's different. It's like, help me with my childcare, and I will go to work for you, even if it's a lower pay scale level, even if it's not the job that I need for my career ambitions long term, but you're the employer that I need right now. So anyways, I went to the business community and I talked to them and I said, how could the state partner with you? And they said 2 things. They said, tax credits is very helpful, and make the tax credits as broad as possible, right? We don't have income tax in the state of Florida, so that one I can't use. And so we're looking at everything. We're looking at everything from sales tax to insurance tax to business rent tax, everything we can, we're going to take a look at. The other thing that we're doing, so there's 2 ways that a business could apply for this tax credit. One is if they build their own childcare, right? Like my manufacturing or my hospital. If they build their own on-site childcare. The other way they can receive the credit is through an ongoing monthly cost of up to $300 per child or grandchild. And that's if they partner with a local provider. Maybe they'll reserve spots for employees' children. When I talked to employers about this, I even had I won't call him out because I think many of you know him, but it was a very stereotypically macho dude in a very macho industry. And he was like, oh yeah, we looked at providing childcare. We already looked at this. I looked to see if I could do like a back storeroom or conference room that we're not using in post-COVID times, if we could have converted it into a childcare room. And he said, it was really compelling until we realized the regulatory burden and the risk of having children on site. And that was interesting to me. So I delved into that a little bit more. And how I have my bill is that if an employer wants to build their own childcare facility where only employees or employees' children or grandchildren will go, maybe we can make them certification exempt, which is the same status that we offer for childcare that's attached to a religious center, if it's a faith-based preschool. They still have to do an accreditation. It's not going to be some wild west of an unsafe environment for children to be in, but maybe they don't need the Department of Children and Families to show up unannounced 3 times a year and inspect across 437 points of inspection, which is what normal certified childcare centers have to go through. So that's what I've got in the bill right now. We'll see how it goes this session. I obviously feel optimistic about it. And I know the chamber is very supportive, which it is incredibly helpful as well.
Well, that is
Yeah,
great.
may I jump in here and add one
Absolutely.
thing, just because the children's movement was very supportive of this bill, and we look forward to seeing it come back this year. But I just I don't know how many business leaders are listening here, but one thing that's really exciting to me about what Representative McFarland is looking to do is that it will change the conversation. Like she says, it's not ping pongs and hacky sacks, it's childcare. And I am picturing, again, what is it? The latest number is 2.8% unemployment in this state. That's a full point lower than the rest of the country. It is hard to find talent, and you want to have the broadest pool of potential folks to hire, and we want more working parents in that pool. What happens when businesses start to do this, and when you see on a job posting, 401k, health and dental, $300 a month toward your childcare? That means I'm going to call my friends and say, hey, I know you weren't planning to go back to work yet because it's too expensive to get childcare for your child, but did you know that employers are now offering this? Like, take a look. You're gonna change the conversation. You're gonna change the game. And so I just want to highlight that and applaud you for what you're doing, Representative.
Yes, I want to give you your flowers as well. I applaud you and appreciate your work that you are doing as well. I want to loop in Ed into this conversation. I want to get your overall thoughts about on-site childcare at businesses.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you have to have some scale in order to do that. I mean, PGT, I'm sure they have 1,000 employees or more, as well as the hospital. So for the small, medium-sized business, maybe more the credits or the tax credits and things like that are a better fit.
Thanks, Ed, for jumping in. Representative McFarland, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so this was so interesting to me, and Ed's totally right. There will be there's something I've made it as diverse as possible. There's something for everyone, hopefully, in the benefit here. Small employers could also partner with one another to cost share on building a facility or doing those credits. But I heard just last week from a big national bank, and I won't disclose who they are, but big national bank. And I assumed that they would want to do the $300 per month per kid. And they said, no, we want to build our own because we're a national bank. And if other employees in other states find out that we're doing childcare in the state of Florida, they'll want it in their state too. And if there's not a tax credit, if there's not a financial incentive for us, it's a little bit harder for us to do. But if we could build our own, then it becomes a perk of working at whatever bank, branch location. And they said, we can look across the state and see where we're having trouble hiring and then just deploy that. And they've got more space, just to Ed's point. So it makes a little bit more sense for them. But I thought that was super interesting. And if I put my market analysis hat on, I want as many employers as possible to build their own daycare center, because then they're providing more supply into a market that is strapped. If there are 10 kids that can go to the PGT childcare facility, that's 10 more seats that open up at 40 carats for another family to go to. And it helps lower the temperature on the overall market, hopefully bring costs down for families, for providers. That's my hope and my dream.
And we all have those. And we could reach the stars. Isn't that what they told us, when we were in school? Reach for the stars. We'll touch them one day. We'll get up there. I want to kind of turn the question to parents. And when it comes to early learning, United Way Suncoast strives to promote parents as their child's first teacher, kind of like what I was just talking about with learning starting at home. On the grade school level, parents have played a traditional role in supporting schools. So now the question of parental involvement as well as parental rights, that has drawn some new attention, right? So how can parents help with education issues? I want to loop in Representative McFarland. What do you see as the role of parents impacting early learning at grade school curriculum?
So this, again, maybe it's because I have an MBA or just how I'm wired. I think the data is really compelling. So Madeleine and the children's movement helped me with this quite a bit. But when we look at kindergarten readiness levels, in Sarasota County, 40% of kindergartners are ready to be in kindergarten. We're doing better than the state average as a whole, but that's still super low. When we look at those 40% of kids who are ready, we scale back a little bit and see where they're coming from. Children that come to kindergarten are, three main categories, right? They're either at home with a parent or some, cobbling together of care at home, or they're in a formal learning environment, or some hybrid of the two. Now, I don't want to malign parents that stay at home with their kids, but if you are doing the myth of work from home full-time mom, you're going to plop your kid in front of the TV for a portion of the day, which is never going to be as competitive as being in a formal learning environment. It's the education. I mean, we're not talking about little babies and workbooks. It's knowing how to listen and take your turn with other children. It's knowing how to share a toy with a child that's not a sibling. Sort of these intangible things that make a child ready to arrive at kindergarten, ready to receive knowledge and information are super, super helpful. And so those 40% of kids that are ready to be in kindergarten are predominantly coming from a formal learning environment. That's not surprising. That makes intuitive sense. And so then how do we make that possible, right? How do we make that possible for parents? I want to work. We also need to work. And here in Sarasota, the cost of childcare or the cost of a nanny compared to my earning potential is like a really delicate dance. And as I cruise through the Sarasota Moms Facebook group, I am not alone in this. We often say, when I have small children, I cannot afford to work because the cost of care is so high. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? A parent that wants to work, needs to work, cannot because of how expensive the market is. So I want to do something, whether it's for me or for parents like me.
For sure. Very well said. That's real, right? This is a lawmaker, not your friend, not your coworker who's in the same shoes as you. Someone, quite frankly, if I can say, would never probably imagine that those words would come out of your mouth, or imagine that you're in a situation like that. It's very real, and it hits people like you said.
Yeah. And, I think many of the participants are familiar with this, but so in Florida, we do have, almost tuition assistance for on the low income scale. But for the most part, you qualify that if you're making $12 an hour, which particularly in Sarasota, there's not a lot of jobs that are paying $12 an hour. So it's pretty low to qualify for tuition assistance for any child under the age of 5 or under the age of 4. Like, are you just telling me that if I have kids under the age of 4, I either need to be making a lot of money or I need to stay home with my children? It's bleak out there. It's bleak.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and the way we talk about this, so this is the school readiness program that you're talking about, that is subsidized childcare for families that work or go to school. And the limit is 150% of the federal poverty level. And we all know minimum wage is rising in Florida faster than the rest of the state. So at that level, a 2-parent working family making minimum wage in Florida is too wealthy to qualify for a subsidy that is for working parents. And so, that's another piece of policy that we think we can impact this year that will have a tremendous impact on parents.
Oh, I'm over here questioning life. Do I want kids? Like, what is happening? I'm just kidding. I still want all the babies. I still want some kids. Hey, Ed, I want to bring you into this conversation. We talked about your involvement with West Tampa Elementary School, which is incredible. But you went even bigger and better. You helped the school revive and helped the principal revive the PTA. So what results did you see from reviving that program and seeing parents' involvement in their child's school?
Yeah, so when we started a few years ago, when I started working with Principal Kastner, who's amazing, by the way, that was, we set out like 3 things that we want to work on each year. And that first year was to get a PTA going. And the first PTA meeting was Kevin, one of my employees, and a parent that happened to be walking by. And so we started hosting some events like Donuts for Dads, Muffins for Moms around Valentine's Day, and started to get some momentum. We found a really strong leader, and she started taking the reins. And now we've got over 71. Now we have 71 members this year. We have in the PTA.
Wow.
And where it's really helping is out of some of that, we're getting more of a sense of community. We're PTA is hosting like movie nights at the school and helping with organize. This week we've got a Halloween event, so things like that. And then other things that are coming out of it. There's some challenges at the school with food insecurities. So we were able to bring in N68. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a nonprofit. There's 68 hours between the time they get the free lunch on Friday to the free breakfast on Monday. So they bring in packages of food for the weekend. So we're trying to tackle that as well, because we know hunger can affect your learning abilities, or so that's been helpful. Some of that's come out of that program. Some of the families were afraid to apply to some of these programs because they're some may be undocumented. So we were able to get through some of those hurdles, but it's helped just, I think, overall with communication and getting everybody on the same page, which is where we're all trying to help elevate these kids.
Great work there. Ed, what was the name of that organization you said, just in case anyone missed it?
N68, END68.
N68. Thank you for that. Madeleine, the Children's Movement of Florida offers an entire slate of parenting tips on its website under the banner of Great Parents Are Built, Not Made. So how do we build great parents, and how do we strengthen the trust between parents and schools?
So first of all, it's sort of a trite joke now, but kids don't come with an instruction manual, and when you become a parent, you don't always know what is happening with that child. Parents need information, they need tools, they need resources to support their children. And I come back to this idea that those first 3 years are so magical, that more than 1 million new neuronal connections are being formed every second in those first 3 years. And there are these developmental stages. You get the smile, you get them holding an object, you get them making eye contact. The important thing to know about that is that if you want to support children, particularly in the 0 to 5 years, you have to support the adults that are around them. And we live in a state where 68% of children under the age of 6 live in homes where every adult is out in the workforce. So this is very different than the reality of how I grew up, how so many people in our generation grew up, where you might have had a parent at home. And so that means that early learning teachers help with this important job. And so how do you strengthen this connection? It is that we as parents understand that the teachers working with our youngest children are experts. They do this all day. They know, they're in a 2-year-old classroom for years. They know exactly what's happening. I remember, one of the moments of where I felt most supported as a mom was when my kid, probably around age 2, bit somebody at school. And this is what they do before they have words. This is developmentally appropriate, and the way that they communicate. But I didn't know this as a mom. So they tell me my child bit someone, I have to sign this form. I'm mortified. And the teacher says to me, no, don't worry about this at all. He was trying to communicate and he didn't have the words. And boy, the deep breath that I got to take, and the support that I felt. And it's sort of a silly example, but the fact is, the way to build better connections between home and school is for each side to appreciate the other. That we are a team in this work, that this is not, I'm dropping my child off with a babysitter so that I can go to work. It's, I'm trusting a professional who understands brain development and child development and all of this. And, when we're holding our early learning programs to those high standards and supporting those teachers. And I saw a comment in the Q&A about how little teachers are making. It's criminal. It's criminal that we are not valuing these early years and the teachers who work in these early years to the level that they deserve. And so we need to look at some policy solutions around that too. But I think, just appreciating and respecting the work that they do is a really important step.
Very well said. Yeah. Did you want to add something, Ed?
Well, that's another area that we've been helping with the teachers too. We've been hosting teacher appreciation lunches, breakfast. We've been sending tickets to lightning games, just special activities like that, just to recognize the great work that we do, gift cards and things like that. So it's important because they are underpaid and underappreciated for sure.
And you're talking in the K-12 level, but they're making sometimes half that in a preschool, and yet working with the most magical years of a child's life. So
yeah, I used the example, my meteorologist, Lee, and I think I shared this with our group last year, and it's funny, but it's really sad. So her mother is a longtime educator in Georgia, and Lee was telling me a story of when she was I think in high school, they brought in a foreign exchange student. The foreign exchange student gets there and they pull up to their house and she's like, where's the mansion? Because where she's from, teachers are paid like our doctors and our lawyers, and they're very wealthy. Because they are so pivotal in her country, and gosh, I'm forgetting which country it is, but that's how other countries and that's how other people look at this. Is she thought she was going to be pulling up and like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm going with a teacher over in America. I'm going to be living lavish in this mansion, and it's like, no. Far from it, far from it, the exact opposite. So you definitely hit the nail on the head with that. I want to thank each and every one of you for chiming in on that conversation. We have more on that. I am going to bring in the question and answer portion. Here we go. All right. So I think there were quite a few questions. So let me just go through this really quickly. Okay, so I have a question here from Michelle Brown. The lack of care available is impacted in many childcare centers because of being understaffed. Does anyone have any suggestions for how to recruit and retain staff? And feel free to chime in if either one of you, maybe Representative McFarland.
Sure, I'll start it. So super hard, super hard. For a center, for this, an average center, 80% of their costs is on salary. Again, as a lawmaker, I'll speak to the tools I have in my toolkit. I am not about to set minimum wage for a center because those costs will be passed on to parents, and we've already talked about this. The price is astronomical. The reason why so few places offer infant care is because the ratio is 1 to 3, and there's no way you can pass that cost on to parents and recover that cost through pricing and tuition, because it just makes it astronomical. What do we do about it? Again, for my toolbox, I am looking at some of the silent cost drivers, like the cost of regulation. So when I brought my kids to 40 Carats for the first time, there was like a stack of paperwork that I had to fill out. And some of them I thought a little bit like silly and meaningless, like a piece of paper saying that I understood when flu season started and like we should wash our hands. And that's something that every provider needs to hold on. They need to have a printed out piece of paper with every parent signing it, and they need to do that twice a year. Now, am I saving a center the big bucks by not having to do that piece of paper? Nope, I totally get it. That's, pennies, but death by 1,000 cuts, that stuff adds up. Another example is CPR. So the way that Department of Children and Families is administering the CPR portion of their 437 points of inspection is to require that 100% of staff be CPR qualified. CPR is usually, many places offer it as a free class. But if your teachers are all going to an hour-long CPR class, which is the shortest that I've seen in the market, you're still paying them for that hour to be doing the training and not providing care to children. And so do we need 100% of hands to be CPR qualified and still care for children in case of emergency? I think that's an area where we can think a little bit smarter. These are some of the things that I'm looking at. I recognize it's not going to overnight turn our childcare teachers into mansion owners, but it's rowing in the right direction, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Did either one of our other panelists want to chime in on this?
I'll chime in. I think one important mechanism, if you look at the schools that are serving our children in the school readiness program, so again, these are the children of working families, low-income working families, if we can raise the rate that the state pays per child, then you're increasing the revenue to that center and hopefully allowing them to make different choices about pay that would change recruitment. And this is something that actually passed 2 years ago in the legislature and has been stalled in implementation. So I raise that as really low-hanging fruit, because if we could implement the legislation, we've got you can make a big impact. The other thing that we heard when we were traveling the state and talking to teachers and center owners about this was something like shared services. You know, that Representative McFarland talked about the business model. It's really tough. If 70% of your costs are labor, it's really tight to make those business decisions. But if there were things like the back office, if it's the accounting, the marketing, some of this, if that is shared among a group of centers and you don't have to incur those direct costs, that's something. It's not a policy solution, it's sort of a business solution. But we know across the state there's all kinds of business training being offered. So often when you go into this profession, it's out of passion, it's a love for children, it's an understanding of the impact you can make. And there are some solutions on the business side that can help as well.
Thank you for those comments. As we kind of approach the end of our hour here, I know we had a few other questions. And so what I will ask our panelists to do, they were not told to do this, but if you all do have some time, if you can take a look at those, and if you have the adequate answers, if you could afterwards respond to those questions as well. So I want to get to our final thoughts and ask each of our panelists, or excuse me, yes, ask each of our panelists to give your closing comments. We're going to bring back Bronwyn as well. And so the question here that I want you all to answer is, how can all of us improve the state of the child in Florida? We'll start with Ed.
All right. Well, that's a loaded question, but I mean, for me, it's just we've got to get as many people involved as possible. It's such an important issue, and we've got to continue to talk about it, and then also take action, because a lot of people talk and, hey, I want to help, but sometimes they don't know how to do that. So for example, this CEOs in Schools program, we're still looking for some more business leaders for this year's event. So if there's anyone on the call, there's other schools that need help, especially these Title I schools. So just getting involved, and it could be as little as joining your PTA to sitting down with the school and the administrators and seeing, hey, what can I do to help? So again, there's a serious need, and we need to get more people to step up and contribute. So that's communication, education, that whole deal. More stuff like this panel and this conversation today, continuing these types of conversations.
Thanks, Ed. Madeleine, how can you, or what do you think the state of the child is here in Florida?
Yeah, well, I think I would echo what Ed just said, that we all have a role to play. And if we pay attention to what is the state of the child and look for what role we can play, we can make a big difference. And I would say, for instance, I saw a question about family-friendly workplaces, and somebody's asking, how do we do that in workplaces that employ Alice families? And I think that is so important. And the message is, there's no one size fits all. We're not going to give you a list of benefits and say, this is what you have to do. It's listen to your employees. It's ask questions. It's understand how many of them have children and what might they be dealing with. And then whether it's paid leave, flexibility, health and wellness benefits, childcare support, any other kinds of accommodations for mothers who may be nursing, for instance, there is a whole menu to choose from, and there's no pressure to do it all. The question is, take a look and see what you can do. And so I invite everyone to take a look at bossesforbabies.com. There we have our whole guide to family-friendly workplaces in Florida. And it's got case studies from businesses of all different sizes, all different parts of the state and all different industries. There's something that we can each bring to this.
Thank you for your comments. Representative McFarland?
I think the state of the child is strong. I do. As I think I got exasperated talking about the woes of parenting as I have 2 kids homesick today. But the state of the child is strong. Look, like we care, we get it. We are focusing on kindergarten readiness levels, which was something we didn't, that wasn't data we collected for the longest period of time. Coming out of COVID, how many parents had to sit home with their kids and have a newfound tremendous overwhelming love and appreciation and support of what their teachers go through. I think the state of the child is strong. We are talking about these things. It is getting better. It is still very difficult to have small children, but we care about it in the state of Florida. We are focused about it. We are talking about it. I'm focusing on the child care tax credit this session. Follow-on work that has my interest for future years is some more out-of-the-box thinking. So there's really interesting research around the win-win benefits of children and old folks staying together. It used to be, we all knew this when we lived in multi-generational homes, but maybe there's something we can lean into there. Maybe we can look at senior living centers and the delight that they would get out of playing with a child, and the benefit that the two-way street, right? Benefit to children as well of having someone that will sit with them. There's a lot that I need to think through there. So it's not going to happen for this year, but that has my attention for the future. Another thing that I'm talking about with some of our lending institutions is, do you ever think about the fact that you happen to have small children when you're at the lowest earning potential in your life? You have children when you're younger, you haven't you're early in your career. What if we looked at some financial products like daycare tuition assistance or a daycare loan or something that banks could offer and help families with the costliness of having small children when they're at the lowest earning potential in their life, with the promise they pay it back later at a low interest loan or something. I'm not sure, but these are ideas that I think I'm thinking about, and some other smart people are thinking about for following years. And hey, I don't know if anyone, watched the presidential debates a couple of weeks ago, but there was a question about the childcare crisis in a Republican presidential debate. I mean, that's a pretty cool moment.
Well, thank you for those comments. So yes, I hear more people, more involvement, more communication, more legislation when it comes to improving the state of the child. Once again, I want to thank each and every one of our amazing panelists. We have Ed Ellsasser, CEO of PrimeGroup Insurance. We have Madeleine Thakur, CEO of the Children's Movement of Florida, and State Representative Fiona McFarland of Sarasota. So thank you all once again for your time and for your input. It was incredible. I'm always happy to be a part of this event. I want to bring back in Bronwyn for our final comments of this session today.
Wow, this is a powerful opportunity to wrap up what has been a significant and important conversation. Thank you to the amazing Deanne King, who has led us through this conversation, as well as our panelists. And it's not lost on me that you all are here. You're here to learn more. You're here because you care, and you're here because you want to make a difference. A thriving democracy requires an educated populace. How do we get there? How do we not let the concerns of the day stop us from moving forward to the future that we see tomorrow? Let's do this together. Let's dive in. I know there are a lot of questions. I love what Madeleine said about each side appreciating the other. I like to extend that beyond that there aren't any sides here. Think of us as a circle. Think of us as belonging to one another, and take up that mantle on what is the one thing that you can do today that will make a difference. We need long-term solutions, and we will work toward those. United Way Suncoast is committed to United We Learn, an initiative that supports our children's early learning. We're also committed to United We Thrive, an initiative that supports our Alice families in our community. Join us in this conversation, and thank you so much for being here. If you want to learn more, go to unitedwaysuncoast.org. If you want to hear more conversations and figure out how you might want to engage further, join our podcast and listen in on the Freedom to Rise podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. There's so much more information. Thank you to our amazing data team on our website. Please take advantage of that and let us know how we can help. How can we help you find your path in this crisis? The state of the child is strong, but it can be stronger. Let's look beyond the scores and get to good. United we rise, united we win.